Have you ever loved someone before you ever saw their face? Could a single song, shared through a floor, be the start of everything? This story shows that the wait can be rewarded. Chicago, the autumn of 1961. The rain had not stopped for 3 days. On the 4th floor of a narrow brick building on Wells Street, Eleanor Marsh sat awake at 2 in the morning, unable to close her eyes. She was 29 years old, a music teacher at a small school for girls, and the only sound she trusted anymore was the radio. The station played jazz all night, soft and slow, the kind that made loneliness feel almost beautiful. That night, the song was a quiet piano tune she had loved since she was a child. And then she heard it. Faint but real. The same song, rising up through the floorboards from the apartment below. Someone down there was listening to the very same station. Eleanor sat up. She had lived above this stranger for 2 months and had never once seen him. She only knew the shape of his hours. He came home late. He played the radio low. He never spoke loudly. Without thinking, she leaned down and tapped her knuckles against the wooden floor, gently, in time with the music. 1, 2, 3. She felt foolish the moment she did it. Then, after a pause, the floor answered. 3 soft knocks, rising back up to meet her. Eleanor laughed out loud in the empty room. It was the first time she had laughed in weeks. The man downstairs was Thomas Reyes. He was 34, a typesetter for the Chicago Tribune, a man who worked with words all night and spoke very few of them by day. He had come north from Texas years ago, carrying a quiet sorrow he never explained. When he heard the knocking from above, he sat very still. Then he smiled slowly, like someone remembering how. He tapped back. And so it began. They never planned to meet. That was the strange beauty of it. Night after night, the radio played and they answered each other through the floor. A knock for hello. 2 knocks for good night. When a song they both loved came on, they tapped together until the rhythm became a kind of conversation. Eleanor started leaving notes. She would slide a small folded paper under her own door, then down the stairwell tucked beneath his. "What is your name?" the first one asked. "Thomas," he wrote back. "And yours?" "Eleanor." The notes grew longer. They wrote about the music, about the rain, about the small fears they had never told anyone. Weeks passed this way. Eleanor learned that Thomas read poetry he was too shy to admit liking. Thomas learned that Eleanor had once dreamed of playing piano in concert halls before life made her practical. They built a whole world in ink and knuckles, and neither of them dared to break it by meeting. Eleanor was afraid of being seen and found ordinary. Thomas was afraid that the moment she saw his face, something would change and the warmth would disappear. So they stayed apart, loving the idea of each other, terrified of the truth. Then one evening Eleanor decided she had waited long enough. She put on her best dress, deep blue, and walked down the stairs with her heart pounding. She knocked on his door, a real knock this time, against wood at eye level. When Thomas opened it, they stood frozen, both of them. He was tall and dark-eyed, with ink-stained fingers and a careful smile. She was lovely in a way that had nothing to do with trying. For a long moment neither spoke. Then he said, "You came down." And she said, "I got tired of the floor." They talked until morning. It was easier than either had feared and harder too, because now the longing had a face. Over the following weeks they walked along the lake when the weather allowed. They drank coffee in a diner where the waitress knew them both. They were falling, helplessly, the way people do when they have already fallen long before they admit it. But Thomas held something back. Eleanor could feel it, a door inside him that stayed shut. The revelation came on a cold night in November. Eleanor found an old photograph that had slipped from one of Thomas' notes, tucked by accident into the wrong fold of paper. It showed a younger Thomas in a uniform, standing beside another man who looked almost exactly like him. On the back, in his handwriting, were the words for Daniel, who loved this song best. Eleanor understood at once. The station they both loved, the song that had started everything, had never been only hers. Thomas had been listening for someone else. When she asked him gently, he finally opened the door he had kept closed. Daniel had been his younger brother. They had come north together, two boys chasing a bigger life. Daniel had died in an accident at the printing house where they both once worked, a sudden thing, quick and cruel, years ago. The radio station had been Daniel's favorite. Thomas kept it on every night, not for the music but to feel his brother near. The knocking from above, that first night, he had believed for one wild instant that it was Daniel answering him from somewhere beyond. When he learned it was a living woman, he had felt joy and guilt twisted together so tightly he could not separate them. Suddenly, everything made sense. His silences, his fear of being seen, the way he sometimes looked at her as though she were a gift he did not deserve. Eleanor realized she had fallen in love with a man still grieving, a man who had hidden his sorrow inside a song. And Thomas, ashamed, pulled away. He told her he was not ready, that loving her felt like leaving Daniel behind. He said perhaps they had imagined the whole thing. Two lonely people inventing a romance out of rain and radio static. Eleanor went back upstairs with her heart breaking. The notes stopped. The knocking stopped. For 2 weeks the floor between them stayed silent, and that silence was louder than any argument. She nearly took a teaching position in another city, ready to leave it all behind. She packed half her things. The apartment felt like a tomb without his quiet presence below. But Eleanor had spent her whole life being practical, being careful, letting good things slip away to avoid the risk of pain. Standing among her packed boxes, she understood that leaving would be the easy thing and the wrong thing. Love was not a betrayal of the dead. It was the only proof that the living could still feel. So she made her choice. She would not run. She would help him carry what he could not carry alone. That night she did not knock on the floor. She sat at the small piano in her apartment, the one she rarely played anymore, and she played the song. Their song. Daniel's song. She played it slowly and clearly, loud enough to fall through the floorboards, into the room below, into the heart of the man who had taught her how to be brave by being afraid himself. Downstairs, Thomas listened. He closed his eyes. He understood what she was telling him. That she knew everything now, and stayed. That love did not ask him to forget his brother, only to keep living. He climbed the stairs. He knocked on her door at eye level, the way she once had on his. When she opened it, her hands still warm from the keys, he could barely speak. He said, "You played it for him." And she said, "I played it for you." They are the same thing now. They were married the following spring. Thomas kept the radio on every night, but now it was not a way to mourn. It was a way to remember and to live at once. Eleanor returned to her music, and within a year she was playing in a real hall, a small one but real, with Thomas in the front row every time. They never moved from the building on Well Street. They simply combined the two apartments, his below and hers above, and they cut a small round opening in the floor and ceiling, framed in dark wood, so that music could pass freely between the rooms they had once lived in alone. On quiet nights, when one of them could not sleep, the other would tap 3 times on the floor. And the answer always came, rising up or falling down, 3 soft knocks that meant the same thing they had meant from the very first night. "I am here. You are not alone." They had waited so long for each other, across a single floor, and in the end the waiting had given them everything. Some people search the whole world for love. Eleanor and Thomas found it 1 floor away, in the dark in a song, in the courage it finally took to answer back.
Did you enjoy today's story? Stay with me for just a moment. Let me know in the comments, which city are you watching from? Did this message touch you? And if you have ideas for future stories, feel free to share them. Your suggestion could become our next video. Leave a like if this message meant something to you. Subscribe so you don't miss the next videos. If you think someone else would appreciate this message, please share it. And if you'd like to support the channel, take a look at the links in the description. Some are affiliate links, which help us at no extra cost to you. Thank you for being here. See you in the next video.